Disavowing's dead. Almost. But what is disavowing? Let's look back in history for a little while. There was a time when, in ye olden days, some people were buying links off mysterious whole big networks of some fairly sketchy websites. Weren't seen as sketchy by many people at the time, but going back to an age where people thought fooling Google would be the best way to do SEO, some people spent a lot of money buying links on link farms and private blog networks and loads of other things like that. And it's essential to remember those people knew they were doing black hat SEO. They knew that they were doing something Google probably wouldn't like. The problem was a lot of them got to the point where they'd spent an awful lot of money, potentially spent an awful lot of their clients' money on buying these links. And in a surprise move, and I'm paraphrasing and smushing lots of complex things together into one simple thing, Google said, "We know what you've been doing, but instead of burning you all with a cleansing fire of de-indexing, we're going to give you a second chance. If you tell us where the links you built are, we'll ignore them when we figure out where to rank you." Now, quite naturally, this sector of the SEO community is a little restrained when it comes to just sharing all their information with Google. So a lot of people just didn't. But for those who wanted a second chance, who wanted to hold up their hand and say, "I think we made an innocent mistake," Google created the Disavow Tool. This is a tool where through Google Search Console you could go and upload lists of all the sketchy links you'd bought, and Google might or might not ignore them. Why didn't they tell you if they're going to ignore them or not? There's a really good reason behind that. If Google was to tell you which sketchy old links they're going to ignore, you could theoretically upload large lists of, let's say, for example, the websites that were selling the sketchy links, and then Google would tell you which ones of those they were going to ignore and which ones they thought were okay. So it's one of those cases where Google is very open and honest to a certain extent, but isn't going to make it really easy for people who want to try and pull the wool over their eyes. So this is how the Disavow Tool came about. It sort of fell into favourship with good SEO practice because any website that's been around for a long time can attract a lot of sketchy links anyway. It's just the way the web works. If you've looked at your backlink profile, and you should, you'll find there is all kinds of junk in there, just completely meaningless stuff. But, as Google's got better, they know in a much more straightforward way what they can ignore and what they should pay attention to. They know the web just spawns all these really rubbish backlinks. So largely, we think they ignore them. They say they ignore them. But as a yet another caveat, the world of the Google algorithm is so big that we can't always be sure. And the shocking truth is, nor can Google. So Google stopped talking about this Disavow Tool after a while. They just sort of didn't really mention it much. And when they brought out the new style Google Search Console, the one we call the domain Google Search Console, as opposed to prefix or suffix, the old one, it wasn't a massive surprise to see that the Disavow Tool was no longer there. It hadn't been migrated over to the new style of Google Search Console. Still available in the old style, and for some reason the old style Google Search Console is still available. So sometimes, we've done it in the past, we would see that a client had accrued a whole load of just meaningless low value backlinks. So occasionally, if that number started to grow, we would drop in a disavow request, and then nothing much happens. We don't know for sure if Google even looked at them, if they took them into consideration. I doubt when we did this, for example, on a test on one of our test accounts, that just a 25-year-old domain that had accrued a load of junk. We submitted the disavow list after doing some research in SEMrush, and I'm under no illusion that Google didn't call an extraordinary meeting. There wasn't a darkened room with loads of Google engineers looking round at my Disavow Tool to decide what to do with it. So they just disappeared. Google stopped talking about it. But the internet and the world of SEO being what it is, people in SEO like to just press buttons with people who work at Google, ask them questions, push them. In some ways, I feel a bit bad for people like John Mueller, who just gets pestered all the livelong day with very specific questions. But then I remember I've seen his robots.txt file, and that's interesting. Did a whole podcast about that on the SEO or Die podcast. Go look that up. It's fun. It's a fun robots.txt. My point is, the people who work at Google aren't perfect. They're human beings. But occasionally they get pushed hard enough that they will give a response. Sometimes I think out polite exasperation. And that happened today. Somebody said, why is Google something about, are you going to just kill off the Disavow Tool? And John Mueller at Google said, probably, eventually we'll just bin it. Well, I'm paraphrasing again. He didn't speak with such a richly led Suffolk accent as I do. But he said, and I'm now quoting, if you've had a manual action for link spam, or if you're certain you'll get one if somebody looks, then disavowing can make sense. But most spammy, paid, placed, swapped links are just ignored now. There you go. Google is always evolving. There was a quote, I think it was from John Mueller just a few weeks ago, saying if you get to the point that you're going to disavow your links, then you should stop and go and find something more useful to do. So there you go. There's a little bit of background on disavowing, how it came about, how it was used. Now, at this point in any YouTube video or podcast or LinkedIn video or whatever, we're supposed to say, now here's the alternative. In this case, I think the alternative is well established. Don't buy crappy spammy links. There's the alternative. Build good links. Earn links. Don't buy them. There you go. Hope this has been entertaining. Please let us know if you violently disagree with anything I've said today. Let me know in the comments. I also want your perspectives. Everyone's had a quite different experience with the Disavow Tool, and I want your experience, if you have one. If not, and you're still watching this video, what are we, 8 minutes into it, wondering what I'm talking about, then well, I celebrate your curious spirit. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Give me your comments. And remember, tell your mum.